All right, welcome back to the Brutally Honest Loan Officers podcast. I am Derek Brown, and with me is
Stephen Brock.
we are both loan officers here in Florida. Unfortunately, this will be our last podcast episode. April Fools! Okay, depending on when you listen to this, technically we are recording this on April 1st, and that was an April Fool's joke. We are not done. We have too much fun doing this.
You got me slightly.
I know. I didn't tell Steven I was going to say that. Oh, man. But I am Derek Brown, loan officer with the mortgage firm. Steven is as well. We're based in Florida, and we have episodes talking about all different types of mortgage loans, real estate, kind of just discussing various topics. And today's topic will be buying a home in an HOA, so a homeowners association. I have previously lived in an HOA, but I do not now. What about you, Stephen?
I do live in an HOA. I think where I'm at in South Florida in Palm Beach County, most houses are in an HOA. I think it's kind of rare that they're not, but yeah, I've been in an HOA. So this house, in the last one, the one before, but yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, we lived in a townhome first, my wife and I, and then actually I grew up in a home that had an HOA. Technically, I had two. And then my wife and I, when we lived in the townhome, that was part of an HOA. Most townhomes are. And then we bought in an HOA neighborhood. And then when we sold that house, we actually built one. And we do not have an HOA, but there's also only two houses on our street right now. So I don't know. I was a fan of the HOA. I don't hate them. Some people like absolutely hate them. And we'll go through some pros and cons, but I mean, what's your take on HOAs?
I don't hate them, but I will say coming from Texas and moving here, like Texas, very rarely is there an HOA, at least where I grew up. So like I was like, nobody's telling me what to do with my house, like kind of thing.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I don't want people to tell me what to do with my house because I'm going to take care of it. But I do want somebody to tell my neighbors what to do with their house so that they can just keep it nice in comparison to mine. But sometimes HOAs can be a little annoying. Like, and I've gotten the letters before, you need to clean your fascia. And I'm like, my fascia? Like, so the little part below the roof, like the gutter line kind of thing. And I'm looking at the front of the house, like it looks fine. Then I walked around the back of the house and it was dirty back there. You telling me that somebody in my HOA went like behind my house just so they could send me a letter? Come on.
A little questionable.
So, yeah, sometimes that's annoying. When we lived in the townhome, they would put a sticker on your car. If you parked in the street overnight, you weren't allowed to do that. And it just drove me crazy that they would put a sticker on my driver's side window. And I almost wanted to go out and get in an accident on purpose and then sue them because I could not see the car coming because the sticker blocked my view. That might be
you can never get in an accident with a sticker on your window now because of this.
I know.
That's evidence.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't think about that.
So both HOAs that I have lived in. So now we're in one, like the one we're in now. I mean, they're still building the community. So I mean, it's not technically run by the owners yet. I mean, the builder is still the main person on it.
Right.
Now, of course, that's a lot of people get worried about with HOAs is that people get in these clicks with it. But I mean, like the rules are the rules, and you have rights to look at those rules when you're buying in there. So you know the rules. Now, do you read them all is the thing. But I think the general idea of an HOA is to keep the value of the neighborhood up, to keep the homes looking presentable, the common areas to look presentable. Most HOAs, they don't have a ridiculous amount of, I'm going to say like fees and stuff that once you kind of like, okay, they do this, this, and that. A lot of them have a clubhouse, so which I think we're going to talk about like amenities with them. You know, just having, you have, I mean, ours has a pool, a gym. We technically have a 5-acre farm in ours that we can get produce from. mean, that's just how, yeah, yeah,
You can go get some lettuce from a farm in your neighborhood?
exactly. So we have a 5 acre farm. I think they're building another one. They're building actually another 8. They're going to build another um, clubhouse because the community is going to be so big that they need two, and they're going to build another farm. But yeah, we have a 5 acre farm that I think we have 2 full-time farmers on it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, can you
So
have chickens at your house?
we cannot, but we can, like, some HOAs don't allow you to have like a big garden in your back. Ours does because of the concept of our, so my neighborhood is called Arden, and it is a agricultural community, I guess, in a sense they call it agrihood. But so everything's like everything else is
Agri-hood.
it's a normal, yeah, normal HOA community. And then you have the farm type on it where, like they said, they allow you to garden in the back of your house, no problem. I mean, there's probably some rules on it, but 'cause we don't garden back there, so I don't care. But um, for the farm part of it itself, that we can, I think we got another month or so, and then like they stop giving you anything, but it's not technically free, but it's free because it's the what you pay for in their HOA dues. We can get, like, there's a list of items so that you can say, I always want you to give me this. I never want, this item, like never give me this. And then once a month you can go and, sign up when you want to go, you go and get it. There's your food. I liked it because there's
All
a
right.
lot of
I
things that
mean,
we wouldn't
coming
have
up with this
tried.
topic, yeah, coming
Yeah.
up with this topic, I was not, one of the pros that I listed was not having a farm in the HOA.
Would that be a con for you?
No, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, like I said, it allows us to try, like, coming from being born in the South, collard greens was a big thing. My wife never had them. So, like, would I actually go to the store and buy them to make them? Probably not. But I've got them in our farm package before, and I'm like, now I'm making them. So that,
Okay, so that could be a pro to some people, having a farm in your community.
yeah,
Um, let's talk about some other pros. So homes within HOA communities often maintain value better due to uniform standards set forth by the HOA. So HOA has rules. You're supposed to keep your yard clean. One of the things that I know a lot of people complain about, but I think is also beneficial, is you can't like park a work vehicle in your driveway. So they want just every house looking clean and cut, no big work vans, trucks, whatever. And I can kind of understand that, although some people find it annoying. But that would be a pro. They want everything uniform and clean. That's not a bad thing.
yeah, exactly.
And then
We,
another pro, like that you mentioned, would be amenities.
yeah, so like ours has the farm. We have huge clubhouse, which has like a coffee bar in it, like not a Starbucks, but like a little Starbucks in it. Um, a huge gym, a resort, 2 resort like style pools. Like, it looks like you're in a resort. Like, you don't look like you're in an HOA community with it. So those are some of the benefits. The other benefits with the, I guess, is an amenity, but like security, you have guard gate. Only certain people can come in that are on the list to come in. So that kind of like a sense of security there.
Yeah.
Um, Ours has a lot of events. I mean, very family friendly, where there is like a food truck night. They did an Easter egg hunt over this last weekend. I'm trying to think of we've had a BMX like event coming. Like, these people come in, like, set up these ramps and do a BMX, like movie
Awesome.
nights by the lake. What else do we do
Okay,
here?
you're in a fancy HOA. Like, yeah, oh, really fancy HOA. Feel like I don't even know you. Um, that's wild. Yeah. Normally, like I'm thinking like when we lived in the townhome, we had a little clubhouse, and you could rent it out for parties and stuff like that. It had a pool that was nice, a little gym, and then it was, gated.
Yeah,
So, some security, and then every so often, police would, come through, not just for, security, I guess. And that was kind of the extent of it. And then our last neighborhood, we had like a large park, fountain. The HOA maintained all the ponds that we had throughout. And then all the like sidewalks, the road got repaved one time. So stuff like that. Putting in speed limit signs, we had to do that once. So they just, maintain, little things. We didn't have a 5-acre farm where you could get fresh cow's milk and
We
then
don't, no cow's milk. There's no
go to the
cow's milk.
BMX party and all this crazy stuff that you have. That's wild.
I will say like this is the only HOA that has this much. Like I mean, we have our own like kids soccer team, tennis team that they, it's all kids in the community. There's just a lot of kids here. Um,
Right.
with it. At my old one, they weren't as, of course, we didn't have a farm that one. I mean, we still had the pool and gym and all that kind of stuff, but
Right.
there wasn't as many activities going on until I would say after COVID, after our like lockdown thing, that they started having more activities because more people were either working from home or staying home or whatever the case is, that we started having
Right.
food truck nights and different events to kind of get the community together. Um, so
Nice.
that one kind of started doing stuff. So I've seen a lot of HOAs where they'll have events for the community. Just mostly it's always food truck nights or they get like a big inflatable screen to do like a movie night for the kids outside kind of thing. So see a lot of that in a lot of HOAs now. So
All right. Does your HOA contribute to any of your utility costs?
they do not. They do not.
Okay.
This one does not. My old one did. My old one, they paid for basic cable within it.
Okay.
So
So
we
that's
had,
another pro. Some HOAs pay for it might be basic utilities like water, gas, sewer, trash, recycling, like the city services or whatever. Um, and then there's just other utility bills like basic cable. You might get free internet. We see it a lot in townhomes, condos, stuff like that.
yeah.
Um, but okay, so that's another pro is, the utility savings you might experience. And usually you can find that out beforehand. Usually, like if you're thinking about buying in a certain neighborhood, we can find out if there are any utility savings there.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
tell a lot of clients that are going out there and looking to buy. I'm like, oh, they're like, oh, that HOA is a little higher, and I'm like, well, what does it include?
Yeah, what's
Sometimes
it for?
they give you cable, they give you lawn care on some of them, maybe water, trash, whatever. So if you take those into account and they're like, okay, if you minus those, which you're going to have to pay anyways, if you minus that from roughly what that HOA cost is, like that kind of gives you enough idea, like, okay, oh, it's 400 a month or 500 a month, but they give you all these things and you're like, well, really it's 200 a month, you know,
Right.
because they're giving me cable, water, whatever, is in there. So you always have to look at that too. Is there are things that they could give you that lowers your. It might seem like a more expensive cost for an HOA, but it's actually you were paying it already, but now you don't have to worry about it
Yeah,
because
there
it's
might
an
be some
HOA.
savings within it.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, because when we lived in the townhome, um, yard maintenance that was included. Trying to think. I think we had basic cable. And then I know that at one point they repainted all of the exterior. So that was covered. Like we didn't have to, pay for that or whatever. So
yeah,
um, some benefits and savings, it's just a matter of finding out what there are. One of the other things too that I consider a benefit is any type of conflict that you might have with a neighbor, or if something like in our townhome, there was not a rule on walking dogs and picking up after them. And so some people were in a little bit of an uproar. It went to the HOA and conflict resolution was handled there, where you were then required to clean up after your dog. And little stations were put up with little trash can and bags. So instead of two neighbors just yelling at each other on a regular basis, they provided a resolution. And feel like that's sometimes a better way to handle it versus, you might get a neighbor who's just unruly or gets angry and loud and stuff like that. And I don't know. So that's considered one benefit too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we had a neighbor at ours, like she had these lights put around her pool or an outside area, and she was an older lady. It's like when they first turned on, it was like daylight in our house kind of thing. And I mean, we went over and talked to her and she lowered. I'm like, no big deal. But it was like, I guess somebody, she's like, yeah, somebody else came, must have complained about it. Like she didn't know like how to really do it. So she had to finally, she just had them installed.
Right.
Um, but she's like, yeah, somebody else came, I guess complained, just went to the HOA and complained. The HOA is like, you got to lower them. Like, we did the neighborly thing and just went over there and said, lower
Right.
this because it's daylight in my bedroom. Um, but like you said, like
Wake up, Steven.
she could be like, no, I'm not doing that. And then we would have probably gone to the HOA and been like, this is considered a nuisance, which
Right.
that's, that's exactly what it is. Cause they put out an email out like randomly saying like, oh, make sure your outdoor lights aren't too bright and going into other people's houses. Like it's an invasion
Right.
of privacy and considered a nuisance. Like you're not allowed to do that. And it also makes it like, let's just say she had them on, like, it would make her like, hey, you need to turn off at a certain time at night. Like they don't need to be blasting all night or whatever the case is. I think we have one here like noise complaints. Somebody is partying every like there's neighbors in our for holidays, New
Right.
Year's, July 4th, like they're having parties. Like it's not, I don't care kind of thing. But like if you had a neighbor that was every night blasting music and
Right.
you got little kids trying to sleep and they can hear it, like yeah, you have to figure out a resolution with that. And sometimes it is. It's like you either go to the neighbor and they don't want to do anything about it, then you have to go to the HOA and they'll start fining them for it. So
Right. Yeah. We had one neighbor one time who used to work on his car. And by work on it, I mean he would just rev the engine aggressively. And it was always at nap time. Always trying to put Audrey down for nap. And he just, oh, time to rev the engine. That's time to rev the engine. And, I went over and just talked to him. I was like, dude, I don't know what it is. Like, every time you do this, it's nap time for us. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'll calm it down a little bit. Okay, great. And he did. Um, but if he hadn't, sure, gone to the HOA, talked about nuisance. So it's there, for a benefit for the majority of the neighborhood, you
yes.
know. What about some cons?
Well, one con is you got to pay to live there. So
Correct.
there are
And
fees.
the HOA fee is something like you sign, if we call it a PUD writer, but a planned unit development. So that's for anybody, any home or townhome within an HOA. You sign it at closing. It's part of, your mortgage documents. But basically stating if you don't pay the HOA, they can file a lien against your house and you can lose it.
Yep.
So like the fees aren't just voluntary. However, there are some communities that have a voluntary HOA if you want to use their amenities. A lot of time that is a neighborhood that might have a lake access. So not everybody wants to use it. Some people do. But for the most part, it's usually mandatory fee. And some HOAs, I mean, it can get expensive depending on what that community has to offer. I've been in a neighborhood for our townhome. It was like over $200. Our last neighborhood was 80. When we first bought the house, it was 65. So it had been increased. There was a special assessment for fixing the surrounding wall of our neighborhood. Hurricane did a little bit of damage to it in certain areas. So they did a full like reconstruction of one side, and that, made our HOA payment go up. So you are looking at some special assessments occasionally, but it really depends on, the neighborhood itself. If
Yeah.
it's just a simple neighborhood and they've got like a, simple playground, some ponds, stuff like that, you may not be looking at any, special assessments in the future.
Well,
But again,
you
it just
also got to
depends.
think is these assessments they're voted on. So it's not like
Correct.
you don't know. If you don't know, it's because you weren't involved in the community. But like you can
You
go
didn't go to
to
the HOA
yeah,
meeting where they approved it. If you
yeah,
don't like it, you could have gone and said no.
yeah. You can, and especially I think maybe it's just our last two, like if it increases your dues, I think they needed like a 2/3 vote from the owners.
Right.
So it's not like, you elect the president or whatever, like 4 or 5 people on the board and they can do it. Like usually when it's financials, like it's a bigger thing. If you're going to increase these two, so like they usually have to work within that budget on it. Like I know we just had one very recently that was, we got an assessment, like $800 for the assessment. No clue what it went to. I had to look it up. I just knew that we owed it, kind of thing. I think it was part of like some part of one of the farm things or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's usually, I say a lot of HOA communities, if for assessment, like we don't have a lot of them, if any. Like I think it's the first one in 10 years I've ever had an assessment. My old HOA community, anybody that bought a house in there had to do a initial
Contribution.
yeah, contribution that was 2 quarter payments. So basically a half a year of HOA fees at one, and that helped keep. We lived there 6, 7 years. Our HOA never went up.
Right.
It stayed exact the same, and that was part of the reason is they had these
Yeah, the initial
initial
contribution when you buy.
contribution coming
Yep.
in. So that kept money coming in that people when they bought into the neighborhood per se to do that.
Right. Okay. What other
So
cons
also
we got?
the restrictions on your property. So
I'm gonna paint my house Pepto-Bismol pink.
if it's not approved, you cannot.
Right. I find that a good thing. I'm gonna put a 70-foot American flagpole in my front yard. May not be able to do it.
Yep. I will say though, this is what really surprised me, and I've seen it at 2 HOAs now. Is like my old HOA allowed it. I mean, ours probably would too, but people built
Shed?
pool house. They built pool houses
No.
on their property, a second unit on their property, and I was like, I didn't think this would be allowed by the HOA. And then I went to our HOA president I just wanted to know, like, how did they do it? And they're like, the city says you can do it, then you can do it. Like, we can't stop you. We can only tell you what it could look like from the outside, like it needs to match your house, the same paint color, all that, but we cannot stop you from building another unit on your property if the city allows it to be built on your property. So there are
Now, are
HOAs.
you allowed to build a shed?
That depends. Yeah.
Okay, if the city allows it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the part of it. I think because those are usually sometimes considered if you go get a shed from Home Depot, put it on your property, that it's considered not a fixed item. So it's more of a like that thing's gonna blow away and hit your
Right.
neighbor's house, and now we have an issue within it where, hey, you built a second unit, aka a pool house, or a in-laws or whatever, another thing in there that they're like it's a fixed item, like it's a built-in foundation and everything else. So I don't think they care as much then.
Right. My last community would not allow us to build a shed or put a shed in our backyard. And I think that that's kind of ridiculous. Like just a shed. It's where we want to store like, lawnmower and all, stuff that we don't want in our garage.
Yeah.
And wasn't allowed. And
Yeah.
if you were to put one in, they could simply say, take it down.
Yeah. You spend all that money. That's the other thing is I wouldn't say a comedy. If you don't follow the rules and you put something up and then they come in and say, hey, we never approved that, like you're paying to have it all taken apart.
Right. And that
Some of
was
the
one thing, like getting a new roof. We did black shingles. Had to make sure to get them approved by the HOA. Like I'm literally just matching what is on my house currently. Still got to get it approved.
and I mean, there's two things. I mean, one, you're just covering your butt on that one. Like what if they wanted to come back and say, like, we didn't say that you could have those exact black shingles? Like yeah,
Right.
you did right here. You said it, you
Yeah.
approved it. You cannot tell me anything now on there. So I think like when we painted our house at our old community, it was like, okay, here's your paint colors, and you can't pick 5 houses to the left and 5 houses to the right cannot be the same. So it's like, starts limiting
Yeah.
what you can do. Luckily, what we wanted to do, we actually got nervous is because it was like 3 houses and then the street turned like to a new street. Then 2 houses in, they painted what we wanted. So it's like, you could see it from our house because how the road was. We're like, oh, the HOA is not going to approve us for that. And they're like, well, no, actually, technically, that's a new street, so it doesn't count. Like you technically have to skip that. You don't turn, you just skip that street and keep going. I was like, Yes. Oh,
All right, so you got through. All right, and if you didn't get it approved, you're facing fines. That's another con. Like
yeah,
you might get fined if you do something without their permission or approval. That can kind of escalate quickly if you don't pay your HOA on time. You can get hit with a late payment, which, by the way, that happened to me, although it wasn't my fault. We were just writing a check to the HOA, and then they offered like setting up auto pay. So then went to set up auto pay, did that, fine. And then next thing you know, we get like a bill for like late payment, and we were like 3 months behind on like a late payment. And so, however, whatever happened, like we paid our dues, and then when we set up the auto pay, it was set up for the following month, not the current one. And so, like it, even though it was coming out of our account, like on time, it was set up for the following or something like something stupid. And so they basically said you missed a payment, but it was like 3 months worth of missing the payment and then late payments adding up or whatever. Even though we were making it did not make sense. So finally, I was able to talk to somebody at the HOA and explain everything and show them the dates. They're like, "Oh, we see where the issue started. Okay, we'll get rid of all the late fees. Just
yeah,
make one payment, a one-time payment right now, and then the computer will then be caught up."
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, half of it is a
Stupid.
computer. Like it's just a computer. Like, hey, you didn't pay this, and just triggering it, kind of thing.
Right. But if I had just let it go and let it go and let it go, what could happen?
You can get a lien on your property.
Oh,
So they will do that. I've actually so I was really good friends with the I guess property manager at our old HOA when he was there. And I guess there was a house that they weren't mowing, like they left, they weren't mowing the lawn, or the lawn guy they didn't pay him or something. So they grew, and we were out there one day, and I saw him mowing it, and I'm like, what the heck is he doing? So I stopped him, like, why are you mowing their lawn? And he was like, it's $50 fine for every time I mow their lawn. And they just keep, he's like, and I'm mowing it, like, it was during the summer. So he's like, I am mowing it weekly now because they didn't, like, they want to make sure the property is maintained. So they were
right.
mowing the lawn, and he was like, either there it's going to be a lien, or, there's probably a certain amount or time that they have to have it sit there before they could actually put a lien on the property.
Right.
But he's like, when they sell it, then we'll do, in the estoppel, finding out what is owed, we'll just take it from their proceeds and say, hey, you owe us this amount. You can't sell the house until you pay this amount, kind of thing.
Right. And that's wild too, because you could have all your mortgage payments on time. And yet if you get behind on the HOA or you stop paying the HOA, they can force you into foreclosure.
Yep,
So
they
just
can.
something to consider. Um, I just think it's wild. But I don't know. So you got anything else? That's a good list of pros and cons for an HOA.
Yeah, I think that's it. What is, so you had a story about your non-payment. I will tell you your non-payment that you paid, kind of thing.
Right.
Um, I had one, and I always think it's so funny. It's like I think I put our trash can out, and then we went to Disney or something, so we didn't come back for like it's like a Monday night, so it was technically quote unquote outside. We didn't, we were new, so we didn't know the neighbors. Like now, like if I go out of town, my neighbor brings it in. It He goes out of town, I
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
his in. But we got a letter in the mail for it being out. My remedy is I had to fix this problem within 30 days. I'm like, the time they gave me the letter, it's already in my garage. So it's just kind of funny to see like you left your, garage can out. You have 30 days to fix it, or we're gonna fine you. And I'm like, yep, okay.
I think that that's where some people might go in an uproar. Like, I can't believe that they would waste the time and money to send this letter and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, I mean, I get
I
it.
get it,
I think that is a waste of time and money, but
but if there
you
was
know,
somebody, I bet you I probably don't really look into it that much because I bring my trash can in, but I probably could have read into it and said, well, yeah, if somebody was doing this weekly or 3 or 4 times, like eventually they're like, you get no warning. You don't get a 30-day. It's out, fine. So that,
right,
that's probably my first warning. There's probably, a couple of warnings you get, and then you just start getting fined right when you mess it up, kind of thing. And then of course, I
right,
mean, that's just a red flag on you for the HOA. They're just looking for you to mess up now for it because you've been doing it so
right.
much.
Yeah. So there is one stat that we had pulled up too. So according to a study conducted at George Mason University, an HOA can increase property values. In fact, the study found that on average, a house within an HOA community sells for about 5 to 6% higher than a house that does not belong to one. So if we're looking for more appreciation, a better bang for our buck, buying, let's just call it a $400,000 house in an HOA or a $400,000 house not in HOA, you might stand a better chance of higher appreciation inside the HOA, according to this study. And just where I live, I would probably agree with that. Homes in an HOA appreciate a little bit more than homes not in one.
I would say that's very true. I mean, there's areas we have like in where I live, Loxahatchee, where there is no HOA. It's more country living. People live on like an acre. Those houses that are on there have not gone up as much as houses in HOAs. Like if you took the same house and put it in an HOA.
Right.
Now, they have the land value and people do whatever they want out there kind of thing. But usually people that are buying out there don't care about an HOA. So that's why they're buying out there. But you do see it. That, an HOA community is going to increase. Now I think you also have the opposite, not maybe for a regular HOA, and we need to do an episode on condos, but like a condo that's not ran properly can have a negative impact on the value. So maybe that's a little teaser for our next episode.
And the condos.
A big question, condos.
All right, man. Well, that's all I got. So when considering buying or selling a home in an HOA, it's definitely important to figure out what it's worth as far as what amenities they offer, weigh all those options. You've got to consider that HOA payment, within adding that to your mortgage payment. Can you afford it? So just weighing all those options, make the best decision. So
exactly.
That's all I got.
That's it. So this is Derek.
All right.
And this is Stephen.
The Brutally Honest Loan Officer Podcast.
Not our last episode.
Not our last episode. That was a joke. That was a joke. No, we will be back next week. Thank you everyone for listening. See you then.
Bye.